Hello everyone, this is Yang Li. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about blockchain. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk about how the blockchain technology is so different from the traditional way of storing data. And then I'm going to talk about why the blockchain technology makes the transaction immutable. And in the end, I'm going to talk about ownership in the transaction so that I'm going to introduce the concept of the public key and the private key. Alright, enjoy the show. As we mentioned in the previous episode, the blockchain is just a chain of database and storing your data or document all of the transactions. So, but in the traditional finance industry, the weight of the transaction is like this. So let's say if you want to send $50,000 from United States to South Korea, so you have to go to a local bank. So, which is the third party that to authorize your transaction. Normally they're going to charge you 3 to 5% of the transaction fee, and in fact on average the international transaction fee it's about 10%, and sometimes take about 3 to 5 days, even longer will be a week. So the reason for this is because the traditional way of storing data or make the transaction complete is all happening in a centralized database, which has a very high operational cost. They're going to hire people to do the maintenance. The process is very complicated. There's a lot of things being running within the centralized system. So since the third party, which is the local bank or the bank provides you the service, so they can charge you very high the transaction fee. As we mentioned in the previous episode, the blockchain is just a chain of database that's storing your data or all of your document, all of your transactions. So compared to the centralized database, blockchain technology is a decentralized, distributed database. So as we mentioned earlier, all of those miners are going to help you to create a block, and each one of those miners will have a copy of your transactions. So the way of doing this makes the setup cost really low. Think about if you distribute the operational cost or maintenance cost to all of those miners, they can decrease the transaction fee or setup cost drastically. And the way of doing this is also very transparent and simply to make the process less complicated. Why this blockchain technology makes the transaction immutable? There are actually a lot of reasons. So one of the reasons I'm going to explain you today is called hash functions. Other reason could be a proof of work or a proof of stake, which is going to take me a lot of time to explain. But today I'm going to only explain you the hash function. So if we take a closer look into the block, so the block consists with all of your transaction history, like your address, like the time the transaction happened, and besides all of this, it also has a hash function. So you can understand hash as the identity of the block. So let's take a look about those two blocks here. So the block 2 and block 1. How in the block 2 they're going to have a hash, which is the identity of this block. It also contains the previous hash, which is the hash of the block 1. And those two blocks being linked by referring to the block 1. So block 2 and block 1 being linked by the referring function. And let's say somebody gonna change the block 2. Once he changes the block 2, it also changes the hash function, which refers back to the block 1. So he has to change the block 1 as well to make the whole blockchain valid. Say if the block gets larger and larger, say it's like 50 blocks, if the hacker wants to attack the block 40, so he has to go back and change all the previous block of 40. And in theory, it is mathematically possible, but in practice, it's going to take a lot of the computational power, also a lot of cost. So in practice, it's going to be very not worth to do it. And to understand the block and hash, it's better to visualize it than just listen to what I say. So I'll link a very good YouTube tutorial below about how the hash work from block to block, and you can also have a hands-on practice by trying to change the hash function and see what's the change of the previous block. Alright, we're going to talk about the ownership of the transaction. So how, let's say if I want to send 5 Bitcoin to my friend, how I pass along the ownership. So how to make sure I only send my 5 Bitcoin to my friend, not sending the same 5 Bitcoin to others. So here we're gonna introduce the concept of the public key and private key. Public key and private key are in pairs to identify and verify their transactions. So I have very good analogies here. So you have to think about the public key as a box. So anyone can send money or things into that box, but you can only unlock the box with your private key, which is secretly put in your pocket, that nobody knows what is your private key. So it's very important to hide your private key from others. Say if you lost your private key, you're gonna be in a very big trouble because your public key or your box is not secure. So let's say I'm gonna send 5 Bitcoins to my friend. So in the previous block, which is in the block 1, it represents I have 5 Bitcoin in my pocket. So I have to create a new transaction, which is in the block 2, to send my 5 Bitcoins to my friend. So to pass this kind of ownership, I have to sign this block 2 with my friend's public key. Since everybody's public key is transparent, or it's public, so everybody knows other people's public key. So I'm gonna sign the block 2 with my friend's public key. So once I sign the block 2 with my friend's public key, I actually pass my ownership to my friend. So my friend, in order to unlock the transaction, to receive the 5 Bitcoins I sent to my friend, so he or she is going to use his or her private key to unlock the transaction. So in order to receive the 5 Bitcoins, he has to pair the private key and the public key together to receive the 5 Bitcoins. So that's the way how I pass my ownership of 5 Bitcoins to my friend. Alright guys, that's today's episode. Hope you enjoy and have a better understanding about blockchain technology. If you have any thoughts and comments, please leave it below. I'm looking forward to talk to you. As you guys know, this is my 3rd episode, and I'm very happy I can keep the consistency, and I wish I can share more in the future. So please stay tuned and see you guys next week. Happy Christmas.